Today, we discuss Miro. Today, I want to talk about the hellscape that is technical diagramming, right? Everybody's nodding their heads right now, And there is a potential solution that I want to share. There was one name that several people brought up. I did some digging, and it's kind of nuts how much this program Miro has for developers. I have to share this. It could potentially be a game changer for you. So my favorite part about Miro is that half the work is already done. Like right now, typically we spend hours starting diagrams from scratch, gathering information. You get buy-in from every team. That's a lot of work to do. But Miro has a full set of integrations with the tools you're probably already using. And they also offer open APIs and SDKs for custom solutions for all those niche diagramming use cases we have to do, right? So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take forever. It's a massive, massive time saver. I'm transforming basic flowcharts and network architectures, and it all lives in one place. So are you using Miro? Have you used it? I want to hear. That's MIRO.com.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to a very, very special Anfield Index podcast. Very special, ladies and gents, because this will be the first in a series of many. So the first thing I did want to say, first of all, is thank you to everyone for voting, everyone who's commented on Twitter or the socials, etc., around our Songs of Anfield series. And as importantly, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the Ragamuffins lead singer himself, the man who you may well recognise from Matchday, Mr. David John Jaggs, or Jaggsy as I would call him. Jaggsy, how are we?
I'm good, mate. How are you? Good.
Good. Looking forward to this, and looking forward to, as many of the listeners, many subscribers will be as well, yourself playing a few tunes and talking us through, a few bits as well. So, first question, I'm going to put you right on the spot here. I know we've had our viewers and everyone voting. Your favourite Liverpool song?
See, I'm going to say this. I think there's a very big distinction between songs and chants that we've got to say, which sounds a really obvious thing to say. But favourite Liverpool song is probably Poor Scouts for Tommy, because, it influenced what we ended up calling our little boy. So,
nice.
I've got to say that. But I think my favourite noise that Anfield makes is just when it's most raucous and most deafening, when you hear just that Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's like hypnotic. I don't think there's anything. There's nothing like it. It's just it's one of the most addictive things. Just that keeps you kind of coming back, isn't it? It's just like you hear things like that, and it's just. You wake up in the middle of the night after being at a game with an incredible atmosphere, and they're the things that are just like ringing in your ears. But in terms of actual songs, Poor Scouts of Tommy, because it's incredible. Like it's like an Icelandic saga.
Yeah, you probably will not be surprised. It's going to be one of the ones we're going to be talking about in this series because it got a heck of a lot of votes. But yeah, I know what you mean absolutely about that chant. It's just the echo, that wall of sound. And usually it comes when either we're playing well, maybe just scored a goal, or there's something that riles us up, isn't there, as game goers type of thing. So yeah, definitely a favourite. And ladies and gents, we'll be asking Jaggsy in this first one all about match day culture, because it's such an important part of Liverpool's, its current and its previous history as well. So we'll be asking about pre-match, people's routines with music. We'll be talking about in the stadium. We'll be talking even more about the match itself. And we'll also be teeing you up for the next few in the series that will follow, because, listen, Liverpool and music will always be intertwined, hence the podcast series. I mean, Jagsy, I do want to talk about pre-match with you, especially because you've got that unique perspective that you are actually part of people's pre-match routine. You know, people will come to Hotel Anfield, hear your songs, the different things. So people, especially match goers, for those that can go, I mean, they are blessed, they are lucky in that sense. But creatures of routine, I call Anfield Index, or regular goers, match day goers, whatever it would be, they come to the same place. And for you, I know it'll be Hotel Anfield, and you'll see the same faces. Why do you think that is?
I think part of it's superstition. I mean, I don't think there's many more superstitious people in the world than football fans. I mean, I can tell you there's whole seasons I've gone through where I've had the same pair of socks on. I won't say the same pair of bills as well. I'm not that bad, and I do wash them in between, I should say. But there are things like that where if you'd be like, oh, I didn't go. Say there was a defeat and it cost us something, you'd be like, I didn't go to that pub for a pint at that. Or I didn't go. I wasn't there before the match at that. And I think that might be a part of it. But I suppose it's just a nice sort of thing, isn't it? You have like your little setting routine where you get to a certain point at a certain time, and I think it's just hard to say. I mean, I suppose culture and routine are part of the thing that you go to the match for, isn't it? It's like, you go because your mates have gone for years, and you can kind of continue those sort of traditions and things like that. And if you develop new traditions, then that sort of adds to your match day atmosphere, and it also allows you. It's a nice thing where it kind of, if you were because obviously not all match day pubs and match day things are going to be the same as they were 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So I suppose it's quite a good thing in terms you can you can document your match going life by, well, we used to go to this pub, or we used to go to this place afterwards, this restaurant for a post-match meal if we'd had a big win and a big European night or something like that. So you can document things quite nicely there in your kind of mind, because it can be, when you've effectively done the same thing for years and years and years and years, I suppose it can be something where, like, the seasons can start to blur into one and blend into one. And so it can be, that was one of the things I was trying to think about. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible to feel that, like, people have made me and people like Andy and before Andy, Jamie, like, a part of their match day. You feel quite privileged for that, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're all big Liverpool fans and we're all big Reds and things like that. And to be a part of the same journey that people go on, well, like, they go and watch Liverpool, but they also go and watch you as well. You feel very, very lucky.
I was going to say, because you mentioned, and obviously I always think, like yourself, you'll be at Hotel Anfield, there'll be people at Taggies, people will go to see different musicians, different pubs, like Andy, as you mentioned, or even on like in the Cot Bar. Of course, and that's built from there. Is everyone sort of friendly? They know the sort of scene, those musicians that way, they play the same songs, that type of thing? Yeah,
I mean, so Andy especially, I mean, we went over we did a festival over in Norway with Andy in the summer, and we'd seen him in, like, passing, and I think when they had when we had the Eagles and Elton John and the Rolling Stones playing Anfield the other summer, the way where I was set up at the hotel to do like a little pre-gig gig, Andy was set up literally on the other side of the wall, because obviously the walls of Taggies and Hotel Anfield are like right back to back there, and so I was like chatting to Andy in between songs, and yeah, it was so. But we've just done, I've got my badge here. We've just done a collaboration with Andy for
Luis Diaz,
Luis Diaz song as well, which obviously he'd been singing for about about 6 months to a year, and because it's Bella Ciao, and obviously Bella Ciao's got loads of like trumpet parts, and so I said, well, why don't we'll get Florin on it, and I'll do the production for you, and we'll properly release it and get it out there. So we've kind of worked with him on that, because at the end of the day, like I said, we're all Reds, but we're all musicians as well, and I think music, music isn't like a competitive sport, which some people forget at the end of the day. And it works best when there's collaboration and cross promotion and things like that. So, I mean, even in terms of songs, I mean, I think that it works better if because someone was like, Andy was like feeling a bit when I played the Sabazlai song, the Dance with Sabazlai, that sort of song. Said his name about 3 times. I'm already doing a Pep Guardiola. But yeah, when I played that after like putting the video out and seeing the lads who'd basically written that, Andy was like, "Oh, I wasn't sure whether you'd mind if I played that," and I was like, "Not at all. It's just I started playing the Diaz song." Because ultimately you want the song to take off, and if people then go back and go, well, Andy started that or that, but I mean, at the end of the other thing is, I think we're still a reflection of the culture, like the song culture and the chant culture that exists outside of this, and we sort of we might amplify that, but ultimately, the songs that are the best ones tend to be written in pubs and bars and on trains and in like on. I mean, especially on like European aways and on coaches and things like to away games and things like that. And the internet has changed how they get sort of they get put around. But I think ultimately it's unusual if it's something that someone like me, or I mean, something like, I think I've only had one that sort of felt like it took off in the Quebec song, which is insane because it obviously in the end it never got sung in the ground. But it's because it's a weird, because when you're writing it when you're writing a song like that as a musician, or because you're effectively rearranging a song in a technical sense, it's a different sort of thing than if you're thinking and writing as a group of like football fans to do something that hopefully will be sung by a group of football fans, albeit a much bigger group. So when you see like the way that the Klopp Jurgen Said to Me song, "Do I Feel Fine?" It's a couple of fellas in a pub, and ultimately it became a hell of a lot of fellas in the ground singing it, and I think that's the beautiful sort of organic way that songs kind of get written. So which is what I thought about the Sabozlai one. It was like the song came on in the Harfy, and a couple of lads outside were like just started singing it and coming up with the chant, so I thought that was a really organic thing and a really nice thing. So I thought let's give it a bit more traction.
It's crazy, yeah. The way, especially with us, they just build so much. I mean, you kind of talked about pre-match a little bit there, as in like when fans come, and obviously you're part of it. In a different way, what does sort of pre-match look like for you, or even maybe post-match? Because I'm guessing you've got to get there, I might be wrong, quite a bit early, set up, you've got timings, things like that. How does it work on an average match day, shall we say, for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I would class myself as an absolute lunatic in terms of I do play for quite a long time at the hotel. But I feel like, and I've thought about this, I try and play as many of our songs as possible because we do have like an incredible songbook as Liverpool fans. And, I do my own spin on a lot of those things. And but you can. There's other songs that are sort of associated with the club and associated with the team. That I mean, so stuff like "Heart as Big as Liverpool" by Pete Wiley.
Yeah.
So I'll play that on a match day because you've got a much bigger canvas to work with than if you're doing like a sort of a 45 minutes to an hour gig where you're playing at the end of a night or something, and you're basically playing the big current hits that people are singing. And so I do like that because you feel like you've got more of a more space and time to work with. You can even like if there's something that you've thought might work, you can sort of do that. But yeah, I mean the way I do things at Hotel Anfield is very much like developed over the last like 2 seasons because it's still a very recent thing. I mean, obviously the COVID season was just insane in so many ways. but that was almost like the closest when it was allowed to be open. It was almost like the closest you could get to watching a game at Anfield. Well, in many ways, it was the closest you could get to watching a game at Anfield physically, like because of where it is. And so it sort of developed its own sort of culture around then. But before then, obviously we'd been playing on the stage outside of Anfield, but that's like a half-hour set. So you're basically looking at 3 completely different half-hour sets that we do before the game. The first one, there would be maybe a couple of like foreign TV channels who'd be there, and you'd inevitably get filmed for like 1 or 2 songs. The second set would be a little bit busier. Then the third set would be as everyone was going in. So you'd think, right, this is the one when we've got to sort of like play people into the ground. But even then, the people are in transit rather than staying and watching you. So that was like a very different thing. But yeah, so it's I suppose because I play for a long time, it's a bit different to some of the other people. Like, I mean, Andy does like about an hour or so set, like plays, all the kind of like, the mainstays of the current sort of cop set list, shall we say. And the same way like Keo, but yeah, I am a lunatic. And I feel like I'm documenting some of the kind of older songs as well. But then again, if I play Alive a Bird Upon My Chest, that's about a 15, 20-minute rendition of a song anyway, so with all the verses. So,
Yeah, that will take some time that way as well. I mean, because like you say, it is such a songbook, and the way you break it down, into like half an hour especially, because there is so many, are there selected tracks where you're thinking, I'm going to play that like just before they go, I'm going to play that at a time. If it sort of dies down at all, I'm going to play it. Do you have like a songs for that type of situation?
Yeah, I mean, that the weird one pre-match is obviously everyone starts to get off because they're going in the ground. Whereas like I'll end up having to go in quite late because I'm playing, more or less up until kickoff, and I've got to get some scran and probably a pint as well before I go in. So it's almost so because you'd think a natural thing would be you'd finish playing with. For me, this is just for me. So I'd finish playing with like You Never Walk Alone and LA. But because you kind of wanting to play them when the majority of people are still actually at the hotel. So I have to work them earlier on, and you're almost playing something a little bit more left field, but something big as a sort of last song before I'm like, up the Reds, let's batter these, and frequently we do. So if we're playing with the band, I like to finish with like a sort of almost like a ska version of "Oh When the Reds Go Marching In," just because it works really well and it gives Will a chance to play harmonica, which
nice.
Utilises lockdown skills that he works on. So I do a bit of that, and so that's probably a bit more unusual. Whereas like if it's someone like Andy or Keo, they're finishing earlier, then I'm sure they'll be they tend to finish with like a LA, You Never Walk Alone in whatever order. But yeah, so I mean, this is it. It's like I was trying to think about this, just in terms of because sometimes you feel like, grief, people have gone in early today. Because if it's a big game, obviously people want to get in a little bit earlier. So you feel like all of a sudden you feel a little bit like, oh, it feels a bit flat in here, but it's not. It's just because that's not it's almost pre-match. You kind of want the atmosphere to be good, but you don't want it to be bristling because you don't want everyone to you want everyone to keep the powder dry, a little bit. You don't want to blow everyone's voice before before the game kicks off.
That is true, yeah, especially like say for the big ones in that regard. I mean, the one thing that always strikes me that I see is that, here probably is the right word. There's some songs that seem to be big or bigger sort of pre-match, before people get into the ground. And even there's probably some songs that, as you'll know, that you hear them or maybe even get requested potentially for you, but then they're not in the ground at all. They're not sort of in the songbook in the stadium. Is there any that you get kind of like big requests for at Hotel Annie, or that you don't hear in the stadium in that regard?
Whatever kind of night you're having, start it off right with Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. Whether you're mixing up a bullet bourbon old-fashioned for a cozy night in, or Kettle One Bloody Mary bar for a birthday brunch, you can get the perfect beer, wine, and spirits for any occasion delivered with Drizzly. So,
what's it gonna be?
Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com to choose your drinks today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, loads. I mean, I'd say the majority of player songs are they're obviously a lot more niche. I mean, like the Matip song, people love that, and that's become like a big thing at the hotel. And you know, it's referenced that like people have a laugh about it and joke about it, but I don't think I've certainly not heard it like by a full sort of an away terrace or like the cop like blasting it out. Same with like Simicast. You know, the Simicast song was huge when Ross like put out the original video when he wrote that, and when we put out the video, you know, we got it on like 5 Live and everything. So, but I've not really heard that. I think it is like a play thing, but it's also a thing where the difference between songs and atmosphere and songs and chants really kind of is shown there, because ultimately, I think you've almost got. I was trying to think about this. One of the best chants we've got at the minute is the Thiago Alcantara chant, and it's perfect for a midfielder, because you've got to think, when are you going to chant a midfielder's name? And it's normally when they put themselves about and do a tackle and things like that. So you need something quite concise. So whenever it was when Henderson was there, Henderson's like, "Oh, hey, Jordan Henderson" chant worked really well, because he'd like smash into a tackle, win the ball back, get into a bit of a scrap with like an opposition player, and then the crowd back them up. And right. and it must, and you know, if you're squaring up to someone and you've got 45, 50,000 people just going like kind of jumping on you, jumping behind you, you must feel like 20 feet tall. So it's the same with so Thiago's one works really well. And I almost think like midfielder songs need to be quite brief, because that, whereas like when you think, and I was thinking this, if you sing in the name of a goal scorer, so if it's like a striker, they can have the luxury of a longer song, because you tend to be singing their name after they've just put one in the back of the net. So you have the initial jubilation of a goal and the celebration, and then immediately they're walking back to the centre circle, and that's when you can give them the adulation with like their proper song. So which is what but the Salah song works beautifully for that, because you've got that sort of the when people like that, when they sing the Salah la la la, yeah, it just cascades down the cop and everything like that. So things like that work really well. And I don't know whether that's just a natural thing, and maybe the fact that you've got time as obviously changes the way that people do songs and people refine songs and people select the best songs for the players in the ground and the best songs for the team in the ground just by trial and error.
Yeah, so, I agree with what you say, though. Like, chants usually to pick things up, like the Liverpool chant, just to get it going, tends to be the songs usually on, like, say, after a goal, a big moment somewhere where we've got time to break into it. I mean, match day at Anfield, I mean, it's special. We all love it. And music is so closely associated. I won't pretend I know other teams, but you think of someone like, George Sefton, the voice of Anfield. He's got his playbook, and even think before a game, you're going to be You'll Never Walk Alone as we get to kick off pretty much. That's going to be the one they're coming out to or, walking to. Also things like Thunderstruck, AC/DC, that's the one you always hear an hour or so before, isn't it? It'll take half an hour.
Yeah, he plays Kashmir as well by Zeppelin. And so, funnily enough, I mean, so George, I've known George for years, and George has always been George has always been a big supporter of ours. But he's a big supporter of like local music in general. So there's a lot of like local bands and local artists that he's supported. So he's got a really difficult job in many senses. And a couple of years, so he'll play music from like local artists because I mean, certainly in a football sense, I mean, although the French, if anyone watching from the French supporters club, they might differ because I played a blinder against them in a 5-a-side tournament, but being played at Anfield on the speakers is the closest I'm ever going to come to playing at Anfield. So when we first got a record played by George over the PA, I was, it was like one. I was like, oh, well, I can quit now. Like, that's it. I've made it. So he's sort of got an obligation to do that. He's got an obligation to sort of build an atmosphere. He's got an obligation to sort of. But obviously over the years, he's got more and more responsibilities to the point where now he's effectively the VAR conductor as well, which can't be an easy thing to do because, I mean, if no one at bloody Stockley Park knows what they're doing with the VAR, then it's pretty hard for George Sefton to know what's going on when he's getting messages to a left, right and centre to communicate that to us. So it's a difficult. So a couple of years ago, the players had apparently said, can we have more sort of upbeat songs beforehand? So, and obviously, as he's got more announcements to do, I imagine it's obviously not an easy kind of situation for George. But yeah, this is one of the reasons why we got Si Senor played in Madrid, because we'd submitted it to the club and because it was really lively. They were like, oh yeah, we'll put this on the playlist, not realising what was going to happen. But so obviously, just like you say, stuff like Thunderstruck is obviously, a great sort of addition to that pre-match thing because it's, you got a great beat and it's like a really driving track to put on. But it's not an easy kind of thing to do. And I mean, there's plenty of examples of George doing iconic things over the years, like when he played Imagine at the end of the Barcelona game. When he played Arrivederci Roma when we knocked them out of the Champions League in 2002. I think it was, I don't know what I think this would have been before George's time, but there was when there was like a Leeds player who dropped the ball into his net and he played Careless Hands over the PA but that might have been the 60s, which would have been before George. But he's done it all over the years.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, think how long, but how much again he is a part of like match day going sort of live or just a tradition that way. It's insane. I mean, the tunes when we're in the stadium, we'll all like say chants are big ones. I mean, the one I hear, can't even call it a song, but the Nunez one, isn't it? That just reverberates around. That lifts everyone. Is there any particular? As much as player chants, they're always going to be part of it, and quite rightly, they're the ones who do the business. Is there any particular Liverpool songs that you think that's the one that will get everyone going, or where you hear that lifts you particular, that sort of resonate with you? Would you say?
I mean, one of my favourites that you hear in the ground, just because, and we'll come on to that because I know we're coming on to speed and tempo of songs in a bit, and there's. But when you get it where like the whole ground sing Fields of Anfield Road, you have this beautiful moment where the whole ground collectively take a breath. And it's like, because obviously there's like a pause in the song. So it's like, all round the fields, Vanford Road, where once. And it's like, and like the whole ground sort of, and when it's sung, I can't put, it's hard to put your finger on it, why sometimes it sounds like it, but it's magical. And I don't know whether there's something to do with the atmosphere, because there must be a whole scientific reason why sometimes it sounds differently in the ground. And it's not just, because when you've got that many people singing, it's just something. Sometimes something in the air sounds different. I don't know whether it's like, if it's the cold and the sound travels differently. Maybe my sort of like thinking of physics isn't quite what Brian Cox would have, but it's just insane when it's like a crisp sort of November, December evening, and there's that under the lights, and you just, it's just incredible. It's almost like you can see everyone collectively exhale, and like the when you can see the breath in it's magic. And but we'll come on to speed of songs later on.
Yeah, I mean, the speed of songs. I mean, listen, when we're saying this, please, anyone who's listening, if you stand, sit in the car, however you want to put it, say for LC, blessed. Obviously, it's a blessed position to be, and whether as we've been together, I know in 306, 202, people talk about this, a match day goers. The speed and the timing, it can be almost dependent. Like, it never almost quite seems, not always, it'd be wrong to say, but never quite seems in unison. Like, for some songs, there'll obviously be like a second behind, a second in front. And especially with the cop, I know we've talked about this, the speed and tempo just seems to increase at times as well. Like, as a musician, can you explain this to the layman, why the cop just seems to, like, if you're in there, it seems to go at speeds that way?
Now, when you've got a lot of people singing at one time, there's always going to be unless you've got one unifying force, whether it's like, so if you watch it, so if you're at a festival and you're watching a band, you've got, whether it's a musician just on a guitar or whether you've got a drummer, everyone's singing on. They've basically got a de facto conductor. When you've got a football ground, you've got a terrace, you don't have a conductor. You're conducting yourselves. And if in many senses, I always think it's a miracle that you've got that it's as in time as it is, because you're basically starting off. I mean, when you think about when the Reds go marching in, the way that it'll be like one fella going, "Oh, what?"
At the back, yeah,
head back, shout into the night air, sort of thing, and then you get like 10, 15 responses. Then so you have that sort of build up. When it's something like Paul Scouts to Tommy, which has like kind of lines and verses of the song, and I've thought, this the only thing I can think of why it gets progressively faster, and then it has the point where it sort of everyone joins in together, is because you've got a stop, but you've got pauses in the song. So it's let me tell. So in musical terms, you have. If you had written out sheet music, you'd have rests in the sort of vocal melody that you were singing. So it'd be, let me tell you the story of a poor boy, rest. He was sent far away from his home, rest, etc., etc., etc. If you're in a huge ground of people, you aren't all going to rest for the correct amount of time, because that's just not how it works. And unfortunately, it's a lot easier to accelerate a song than it is to slow it down. I mean, even musicians find this. So, the example that I thought of when it was planning is Arctic Monkeys. Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. When they recorded that, the engineer and the producer said, "Well, we're going to record you with a click track," and they tried it with the click track because when they played it, they just accelerated really, really quickly, and they got to the super fast. Ding, 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 ding. So by the time it got to the end of the track, it was just too fast. And so apparently what they did, they recorded it to a click track, and then after a while they turned the click track off, which is why the end of the record is a lot faster than the start. But it has that natural sort of like, it feels like it's getting more exciting. But you have it obviously when you've got a song like Poor Scouser Tommy, it is obviously it feels like it's going too fast. So the only thing you could do is start the song incredibly slow, which I think it tries to be done every now and again. But even then, when everyone joins in with the I am, and the other thing I'd say is when people join in with that, it's quite difficult for everyone to come in. I mean, it was hard. I mean, when we had four of us recording it live in the studio when we did our version for the charity record, it was hard enough to kind of all come in together on that bit with a band who are musicians who are used to coming in at the right time on things. So if you've got people who aren't playing an instrument in their thousands, it's I think it's just a natural thing, but where things are always going to get faster and slightly feel they're racing away from you. And obviously everyone's everyone's got a natural excitement and the pump's up. They've had a few beers and that, so they're all, the adrenaline's coursing through you. So I think it's just a natural thing that the songs are gonna be faster than in theory they should be. But I mean, I think what's the only two alternatives is do what Tottenham do with when they sing or when the Spurs go marching in. But even then, that still accelerates. It's just the fact that it starts so slow and kind of and they know that through muscle memory that they try and keep it that slow all the way along, and even then it still accelerates. So, or we get a drummer, and given how the last time I was at the back of the Kop was for the USG game in the Europa League, and there was a fella who was banging on the back walls, and he was getting absolute pelters from everyone around him. So when he left with 5 minutes to go, someone was like, "Piss off, Ringo."
Yeah, it's interesting. Which is interesting because at times for certain songs we do like a bit of a rhythmic beat for whoever's on back of 306 or whatever, banging away. But yeah, I mean, the final question I did want to ask you before we talk about the rest of the series was Under the Lights, whether it be Europe, an evening, not even always like an evening game, sometimes just because of the way the weather is now, it goes dark at sort of 3, doesn't it? So those Super Sundays. Why does the music or the chants Under the Lights just seem so much better, especially probably on TV, as you see, but when you're in there especially? Why is it Under the Lights, do you reckon?
I mean, we just had a 12:30 kickoff, haven't we, on the weekend, and we've seen, we've seen how, it can be difficult to generate an atmosphere anywhere like the same extent when it's an early one, because people, for one thing, people have had enough time to warm up. They've had a couple of drinks, feel less sort of inhibited, like. So I think that undoubtedly makes a difference. I think that the generally the games on especially if it's a European game, it's a bigger game, so it's easy to get yourself up for and create an atmosphere. Obviously, same with if it's a European game, you've got an away crowd who are probably going to be. This is another thing I was going to say. But you have it's a different cultural thing, where it's like, because some people criticise the noise that we make at Anfield or the lack of it in some instances in some games. But I think the thing that makes Anfield's atmosphere special is the reactive nature of it. So we know, once again, using the phrase muscle memory, we know when the atmosphere needs to be lifted, when to react. And I don't think we often get it spectacularly wrong or wrong where it impacts the players. I mean, we've all been at Anfield where we've heard like an away fan section sing out the kind of classic shit song bingo of sort of like, where's your famous atmosphere? We forgot you were here. Is this a library?
A library, yeah.
So all these sort of like classics, but it's sort of like, well, I mean, one of the ones I thought was, I think it was the 2021-22 season, playing Norwich, and ultimately we win the game 3-1, but we'd been struggling to break them down, and Norwich go a goal up, and obviously it's a game we have to win to kind of keep the pressure on City, and then all of a sudden it was like they go a goal up with about 35 to go, and it's almost like the cop just roll the sleeves up and go, right, yeah, we need to get involved here, and we need to, we need to be a part of this. And then by the end of it, by the time Salah's goal goes in to make it 3-1, where he kind of sends the keeper the wrong way and rolls it into, it's absolutely bedlam. And it's not necessarily an atmosphere that you'd expect from a Saturday 3:00 against a team that ultimately got relegated, and ultimately we felt that we should be comfortably beaten. But it's just like how the ground knows to react in an instance like that, and that isn't like sort of that's when it's less about songs and it's more about just creating noise. I mean, City at home last season, it was probably the best atmosphere since Paris, because obviously I think that knocked. I think that knocked something out of us a little bit, but that's a different story for another time. But there was a lot of sort of, it was a hostile atmosphere without being, nasty, if you know what I mean. But that sort of, ultimately we beat a very, very good team that ultimately ended up doing what they did last season, right. And I think the crowd was a big factor in that. The crowd was on really good form, and we know when to scream blue murder at an opposition team, and when it's going to affect them, and ultimately when our own players need backing and how they need backing. And I think that's because ultimately you can have like a team, like when we've seen teams come in Europe and their fans will be incredible and they'll make noise for the entire 90 minutes. But I mean, Besiktas were the best team, the loudest group of fans I've ever heard at Anfield. Certainly the loudest away fans. And they got whacked 8-0. So and they were still kind of singing the whole game. It's just, so it's almost like, we sing and do this regardless. And I don't know. I mean, it's just it's a different culture, and I'm in no way sort of criticizing them for that. If anything, but it's just, I don't necessarily think it's the kind of thing that aids the team and reacts, and it's something that certainly us, and the way that you react to events on the pitch is a huge thing.
I think you're right, though. I think Anfield's special in that sense, especially when it's on it, in terms of the songs, the chants, and how it's really sometimes just comes to the team's aid when it needs it, but also just gives him a lift, a nudge. It is cliche, but they talk about that 12th man. I agree. There's no two ways about that. And ladies and gents, we're going to be talking about songs and chants a fair bit more. So this will be the first of a multi-part series me and Jaggs will be doing, talking about specific songs, even the history of certain songs, what have been our favourite moments with it, and why we think it reverberates so much at the same time. Now, Jaggsy, I've not actually shared with you the full results, but what do you think is going to be in the mix then? What do you think are going to be the favourites that people have commented and said they want talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think Paul Scholes to Tommy will be right up there. I think Fields of Anfield Road will be right up there. I think it'll be hard to see past You Never Walk Alone, because it's obviously it's not just synonymous with us as a club. It's like, it's one of the biggest songs in the that's ever existed. So I think it'd be hard to see past that. I think every other Saturday, in terms of a non-player song, is right up there. I mean, in terms, I'd say, I mean, Diogo Jota's almost got enough songs to write to have an EP. So I think the Jota song could be right up there. yeah, shamefully, when I first heard that, I thought this is never going to catch on. It's terrible. This. So what do I know? So yeah, I think the Jota song and Salah's song, because it's beautifully simple and it's lovely. I mean, you know, obviously you work when you kind of come in with a player song and you come in from a when you come in from a point like Sit Down by James to start with, I mean, you can't really go too far wrong, can you? So
true. I mean, listen, ladies and gents, I'm not going to reveal the full results, so we'll have to see that as the pods unfold and we talk about the tunes, the histories, like we say, and what we like about them. But just to give a few spoilers, there was some amazing tunes, Jaggs, that didn't make it. Even one of my favourites I don't hear often, Bill Shankly from Glenbook, do like that tune that went. Anfield Aggro, that's one of the Chant, isn't it? That came up from quite a few to be mentioned. And people as well get very, very specific, especially when you say about Scouser Tommy around the words, what should be sung, what should be used, and the history of that. So we are going to talk about that, no doubt, in this coming series. What me and Jaggsy do want to say for this one is that we'll play, or there'll be a song, a video at the end of each one, because it's naturally the right way to finish. For this one specifically, You'll Never Walk Alone. Exactly as Jaggsy said, this almost is a special tune in its own. It means so many things to so many people. So it's not going to be one of the ones we talk about in depth, because there's been a lot of chat, and quite rightly, you know, it's historical. There's a lot of emotional sentiment in this song as well. However, Jaggsy will be playing this, so keep your eyes peeled, people, for the video. That will be exclusively on Anfield Index. So, Jaggsy, probably the final thing to say, as well as thank you for this initial one. Any ones that you're looking forward to playing? Any ones that you might even think, Christ, I've got to dust off my old songbook or have a bit of a practice before you think it might come up at all?
Well, you know, if we do live A Bird Upon My Chest, I better clear my schedule for the forthcoming couple of days. So,
yeah, that is a long one, and I'm not saying that's in the results, but we may have to look at a redacted version. Let's put it that way, as we'll be here till 2024. But yeah, final thing, ladies and gents, I hope you've loved listening as much as I've enjoyed talking about this. Jaggsy, thanks very much for your time, mate. Much appreciated as ever.
No worries.
Good stuff. And we will be speaking a lot more. But that was the first, ladies and gents, for Anfield Index in the Songs of Anfield series.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.